It all started with a joke. Not a gentle jab, not a harmless quip, but a line so sharp it sliced through the air at Rockefeller Center and echoed around the world. Colin Jost, halfway through Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, delivered it with a signature smirk. All that Britain demands in return is that we keep these two. The screen flickered to Harry and Meghan's faces, and the studio didn't just laugh, they erupted. It was a roar, honest and unfiltered, the kind of laughter that signals relief, a collective sigh after years of tension. In that moment, Meghan Markle's carefully constructed Hollywood mask cracked for all to see. This was more than a punchline. It was the mainstream finally saying what millions had been whispering behind closed doors, on group chats, and in the comment sections of every tabloid scoops. We're done pretending. The SNL line didn't just amuse, it gave the world permission to stop dancing around the Sussex narrative. For the first time, the veil dropped. Meghan wasn't the misunderstood feminist heroine, nor the silenced royal refugee. She was now officially the punchline. And when SNL treats you as a joke, the rest of Hollywood listens. Within hours, the internet went into overdrive. Forgotten corners of the web lit up with old, grainy photos. Yacht parties with a sunlit Mediterranean in the background, Meghan in designer bikinis, champagne flutes in hand, powerful men always standing a little too close. These were the very photos Meghan's PR squad had spent years, and a fortune, trying to erase from Google's memory. Now they were everywhere, unstoppable. A digital flood, too big for any damage control team to contain. The images themselves weren't the real problem. Everyone has a past, especially in Hollywood. But it was the cover-up, the frantic attempt to rewrite her own origin story, that made the backlash so vicious. You can't sell the world a fairy tale about struggle and victimhood while erasing half your story with a press team and a legal budget. It wasn't about what Meghan did years ago. It was about what she tried to hide from the people who had been buying her brand. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Meghan had just launched yet another lifestyle brand, another podcast, another glossy content blitz. Her team was banking on the same formula: curated Instagram posts, empowerment buzzwords, carefully lit product shots. But the world wasn't interested anymore. Her content wasn't flopping because of sexism or racism. It was flopping because it felt fake, hollow, calculated. The same woman who claimed to be for the people was now picking berries in a cashmere sweater, pretending to be relatable in a garden she didn't own. Colin Jost didn't ruin Meghan's reputation. He just put the final period at the end of a sentence fans had already written. For years, online communities have been pointing out the contradictions in her story, the vanishing friends, the endless staff turnover, the carefully curated sob stories that never quite matched reality. They predicted the Oprah interview would backfire. They predicted Hollywood would grow tired of the drama. They even predicted that allies like Netflix and Spotify would quietly start backing away once the returns didn't match the hype. All of it, every last prediction, came true. The SNL joke didn't just validate the fans. It also gave Hollywood the green light to do what it had been preparing for behind the scenes: cut ties quietly. PR reps started advising clients to steer clear. Publicists stopped returning calls. Invitations dried up. Major platforms began asking the question Meghan dreaded most: is she still worth the risk? Because in the end, everything in Hollywood comes down to value. Meghan had built a brand on being a disruptor, a voice for modern royalty, a symbol of change. But when the world started asking what she had to offer beyond controversy and curated victimhood, the answers got uncomfortable. Jost's joke didn't just land. It detonated. Hollywood has a sixth sense for a sinking ship, and they never wait around for the final plunge. Meghan's inner circle, once an impenetrable fortress of A-listers and public defenders, started showing cracks. Ellen, who once called her brave, hadn't uttered her name in a year. The Clooneys, paraded as close friends at the wedding, vanished from the Sussex narrative. Oprah, the queenmaker herself, went radio silent. No quotes, no gestures, not even a friendly birthday repost. This is how the industry works. You don't get fired, you get ghosted. It's not personal, it's business. The moment you become more of a liability than an asset, you become invisible. And Meghan was becoming invisible at a speed no one could have predicted. It wasn't just the public turning away. It was the back-channel whispers, the quiet cancellations, the retracted invites. She wasn't the it girl anymore. She was the risk no brand wanted to touch. Major talent agencies started updating their unspoken blacklists. Meghan's name never appears on a formal document. It never does, but publicists got the memo. Avoid association. Delay meetings. Push back interviews. That's all it takes. Suddenly, a red carpet appearance turns into a scheduling conflict. A podcast guest bails last minute. A product launch stalls in development hell. And then came the final blow. Netflix. The streaming giant's $100 million Sussex gamble was already skating on thin ice. Harry's Polo series barely registered in the ratings. Meghan's documentary, despite the relentless promotion, flopped hard. Viewership dropped off after the first week, and the internal data painted a grim picture. Audiences clicked, sighed, and closed the tab. Even Suits, the show that gave Meghan her first brush with fame, was pulling better numbers years later on the same platform. Netflix doesn't do sentimentality. They do numbers. And when those yacht photos exploded online, they saw what everyone else saw, the end of the illusion. Executives started floating the idea of letting the deal expire quietly. No renewal, no drama, just a fade-out. The photos gave Netflix the perfect excuse to pull the plug without looking like villains. Brand misalignment, creative differences, the polite industry code for this isn't profitable anymore. Meanwhile, Meghan was still trying to pivot. A new cooking show, a lifestyle brand, another podcast. But every step forward triggered more backlash. People were no longer listening to what she said. They were watching how she moved. Picking berries in white pants in a luxury garden looked less like relatability and more like satire. Her cooking show didn't flop because of bad lighting or awkward editing. It flopped because it felt like a PR exercise, not a passion project. Critics pounced on the curated aesthetic, the awkward energy, the absence of any real culinary skill. It was Meghan playing house, not being real. The worst part was the branding fatigue. She tried on too many masks. Feminist icon, racial justice advocate, misunderstood wife, entrepreneur, media mogul. None of them stuck. Each one contradicted the last. And with every reinvention came another wave of receipts. Fans dug up old interviews, staff testimonies, media reports. The image she'd worked so hard to control was now spiraling into something she couldn't manage. She wasn't being attacked. She was being exposed by her own pattern of behavior, her own contradictions, her own PR missteps. The industry was done pretending. Meghan was no longer a disruptor. She was a case study in overexposure, a lesson in what happens when branding overtakes authenticity. And no amount of spin could change what was already unfolding behind the scenes. The meltdown wasn't coming. It had arrived. Netflix pulled the plug, and the dominoes didn't just fall, they collapsed in every direction. Archwell, the Sussex's production company, went from being hailed as a bold new voice to a punchline in boardrooms. Executives, who once pitched six-figure collaborations with Meghan, now flagged her name on internal memos. The data told the story. Low viewership, poor retention, harsh public reception, no engagement, no ROI. In entertainment, those three letters mean one thing: death. The silence from Meghan's allies wasn't hesitation. It was calculation. Big brands don't cancel people. They quietly step away. Charity organizers stopped returning calls. High-profile guests ghosted event invites. Even brand sponsors started pulling back. Luxury labels that once scrambled to dress Meghan at galas simply stopped returning emails. Her face stopped appearing on magazine covers. After a while, it didn't even make the footnotes. This wasn't a PR crisis. It was an identity collapse. Meghan had built her entire brand on being misunderstood, persecuted above the noise. But when the curtain got pulled back, when the old yacht photos resurfaced, when fans started circulating untouched footage, when real people who'd worked behind the scenes began sharing stories, the magic trick stopped working. The narrative of the silenced Duchess couldn't stand next to the image of a champagne-soaked Mediterranean afternoon with billionaire partygoers. But the most brutal aspect of this fall wasn't the media. It was the fans. The same people who once defended Meghan against every tabloid hit job were now the ones cataloging her contradictions. Reddit threads became archives. TikTok turned into a real-time documentary. Influencers built entire brands around dissecting the gap between her branding and her behavior.